Salam and welcome to our program. This is The Show. I'm your host Ann and it's a Zabarnews special current affairs program which will keep you updated about what is happening around the world. Today, we are focusing on Joe Biden's policy statement on Kashmir. The Democratic presidential candidate says, and I quote, "In Kashmir, the Indian government should take all necessary steps to restore rights of all the people of Kashmir. Restrictions on dissent, such as preventing peaceful protests or shutting or slowing down the internet, weakens democracy." To discuss what it means and how will it translate on the ground, we are joined by distinguished guests. But first, a report by Minahil Zehra on the brutal killing of an innocent in Kashmir.
Kashmir has witnessed a killing that has shocked the world. Bashir Ahmed Khan was killed on his way to the bank. Victims' families say that Khan had to draw some money, so he took his grandson along with him. The 3-year-old child had dreams of having some candies. The kid never knew his picture of sitting on the body of his grandfather will become viral. The incident has reminded the world of the killing of a young Palestinian child, Muhammad al-Durra, 20 years ago. His father died in trying to protect him. Indians are following the same strategy used by Israelis to kill Palestinians. Since August 5, 2019, Indian-held Kashmir has witnessed unprecedented brutal action. The status of the valley is unilaterally changed. Thousands of non-Kashmiris are being awarded domiciles to change the demography of the region. It's an issue which shouldn't have lingered until now. If United Nations resolutions are implemented, Kashmiris can also enjoy peace.
We have with us member of the Canadian Parliament Iqra Khalid and member of the British Parliament Afzal Khan, plus a number of other distinguished guests from across the United States of America. Let's start with Ms. Iqra Khalid, who is joining us now from Mississauga, Canada. Iqra Khalid Sahaba, how do you see the human rights situation in Kashmir almost a year after that 5th August escalation?
I think that this pandemic has really laid bare a lot of the vulnerabilities that exist around the world. It's added an extra layer to already dire situations of human rights, with the lack of resources, the lack of freedom of movement, and the lack of attention, quite frankly, as states are turning inward to ensure that their own citizenry are well protected in this. So over the past number of months, there hasn't been a lot of light shed as countries deal with the challenges within their own borders.
Afzal Khan Sahab, why the leader of the Labour Party had to give clarification on his statement on Kashmir? Was he ignorant, misguided, or poorly briefed before making the statement in the first place?
Look, the issue is not of clarification. I think we've got to understand what actually happened and how particularly the Indian media twisted his letter. His letters were written to British Hindu Forum in response to a letter which they had written. So he was trying to make some clarification, he was trying to reach out as a new Labour Party leader for further discussion with them. What people miss out is that actually in the same letter, 3 times he emphasized the importance of human rights to him, how he has been committed all his life, how under his leadership human rights will be at the center of it, and how he wants to see the world in respect to human rights. So in all these areas, actually what you see is there is no contradiction, but because people took a wrong understanding of the letter and the context, and with the Indian media particularly portraying as though that there has been a U-turn, this is where the clarification then came, and he made it absolutely clear in this clarification that far as he is concerned, he is committed and he will remain committed. Labour Party will remain committed. There has been no change in the Labour Party's policy, and we want to see this issue being resolved. And he acknowledges the important role of both India and Pakistan. And of course, this all has to be done with the understanding of the Kashmiri people, because they are the center. So I think this is what the real context of the whole situation is.
Now we are joined by Pakistani American Republican from Texas, Dr. Arjuman Hashmi. Dr. Sir, Biden has at least demanded India to restore rights to Kashmiris. Don't you agree that his policy statement is more appealing than Trump's so-called offers of mediation?
Thank you for asking me to interview with you. I think his policy statement does carry some weight. However, what concerns me is that Vice President Biden had been the Vice President for long periods of time with President Obama, and at no point during that time the Kash-mir issue was still existent at that time, but I never saw such statements by him at that point. And so what concerns me is that is this statement being just really made to attract voters to vote for him, particularly from the Pakistani side or from the Kash-miri side, which basically means Pakistani or Kashmiri Americans of Pakistani or Kashmiri descent, or whether he truly will follow through if he does get elected.
We are now joined by Chairman American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee, Dr. Ijaz Ahmed. As a community leader, he is the only Pakistani American invited to meet presidential candidate Joe Biden last month. Let us first play what Joe Biden had to say about Dr. Ijaz.
Is Dr. Ijaz Ahmed here in New York? Hey Doc, you do a heck of a job, man. Thank you. People look to you. They look to you to see who you like because they know you know people. They know you know who the candidates are. What you're really doing, which I find the hardest thing to do, is vouch for somebody else. And you're vouching for us. I promise we will do our best to not in any way ever embarrass you or let you down. Because, I'm sure what's going to happen is, I know why we've raised all this money. It's because of all of you. You've asked. You've asked and you've said, I like this woman and man. I want to help them. And that's why they're doing it. So thank you. And I appreciate it more than you can imagine.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Dr. Saab, did you expect that he will really listen to the community leaders like you and say something so remarkable on Kashmir?
Yeah, I think I'm not the only one who's meeting Biden. There are many other people who are meeting Biden. And he has met a lot of community leaders from all over country, Muslims and Pakistanis. I'm one of them and I was happy to be there. And it was very productive discussion in a way that I was able to highlight the issues and the concerns which our community is looking. We have national issues which Muslims of American Muslims are facing, and also international issues where a lot of Muslims, minorities are facing in all over the world. So, I think a lot of people are talking. I'm one of them, and of course, APPAC is behind me. So there is a Biden statement came, and definitely I think we are making some impact.
Here we are joined by Professor Naeem Zafar from California. Professor Naeem Zafar, Joe Biden's policy statement has angered many Indian Americans. Don't you think that Indian lobby will now put all its weight behind the Republican candidate?
The Indian lobby is indeed very strong, and they will try to influence both candidates. So I don't think it will be undue that suddenly all Indians will be voting for Trump. But the fact is the lobby is strong and there'll be influence. What happens in India is crucial to United States. So United States has to walk a fine line and keep their options open. So Pakistan has to do the same thing. They have to continue to explain and tell people the importance of Kashmir to the strategic location Pakistan and India are, and make sure that the balance of power doesn't go out of whack, because that is not in the best interest of the United States. So my feeling is that Biden policy will be favorable to our cause for Kashmir's independence, but Indians are not going to throw their weight behind Trump.
We are also joined by Professor Adil Najam from Boston. Professor Najam, do you go along with him?
At one level, I do not think that Mr. Biden has anything to lose. This may even be sort of fairly calculated politically by Mr. Biden himself. I don't think he is in any danger of actually gaining the Indian diaspora vote at this moment from Mr. Trump. While obviously this is a big diaspora, so there are people with all sorts of views, but for most part, by and large, it does seem that the Indian diaspora is already firmly in Mr. Trump's camp. Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi seem to be very close. They seem to have a very close personal relationship. Mr. Trump has gone to Mr. Modi's rallies, and for most part, I think Mr. Trump has the Indian vote firmly in place, and so much in place that Mr. Biden cannot sort of win it away from him. So in this sense, I do not see that such a statement would make a difference to Mr. Biden. It might gain him more of the Pakistani diaspora vote, but at one level, I do not think A, the statement is strong enough, and B, it is of the type that is going to change that fundamental dynamic of where the Indian diaspora is likely to vote in the next election.
Now we are also joined by Dr. Salman Naqvi from California. Dr. Saab, every other day we see Indian army murder Kashmiris. Do you think that a BLM type movement is needed in Kashmir to wake up the world?
जी मैं काफ़ी लोगों को जानता हूँ जो इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर से हैं, जिनकी फैमिलीज, दोस्त, रकीब और रकबा अभी भी इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में रहते हैं. जो फीडबैक मिलता है कि हालात बहुत ज़्यादा ख़राब हैं इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में. बहुत दहशत का आलम है. लोग इंट्रैप्ड फील करते हैं. फ्रीडम नहीं है. अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये सब चीज़ें जो हैं ये बहुत ज़्यादा मेंटल प्रेशर और मेंटल बीमारियों का सबब बनती हैं. मेजर डिप्रेशन, सुसाइडल थॉट्स, ये सब चीज़ें जो हैं ये बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाती हैं. नेचुरली आपकी सारी फ्रीडम्स, आपके राइट्स, सब चीज़ें आपसे छिन गई हों तो लगता है कि फ्यूचर में कुछ नहीं रखा. और हालात जो हैं वो बेहतर नहीं हो रहे. स्ट्रगल वो लोग कर रहे हैं लेकिन दे फील इंट्रैप्ड एंड वो उनको उम्मीद है कि इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी उनके लिए कुछ करेगी अभी भी, जबकि उनकी उम्मीद कम होती जा रही है. अब देखें फ्यूचर में उन लोगों के लिए क्या रखा है. उम्मीद है कि शायद अभी भी उनके लिए कहीं ना कहीं से कोई ना कोई मदद के लिए उठेगा. And that's all we can hope for at this point.
Ms. Ikra, bold political statements have their worth, but mostly little or sometimes nothing is practically done. What do you think people who have immigrated to developed countries should look for during election campaigns?
That's a very good question, and I think a very timely question as well. The complex issue of sovereignty of a nation is one that is really challenging to navigate through. And a country like Canada, that is a middle power, doesn't have a lot of resources and tools that we can use to have impact in how a nation, how a state conducts themselves, especially when it comes to human rights issues. I think statements do have a lot of value in expressing the concerns of our constituents, in sharing with Canadians and with the world what values Canada as a country has, what principles we stand on. And it does help in building pressure with the international community as we come together and really highlight the shared values, not just of one country, but of many countries. So I think that statements have a lot of impact. And it is one of the tools that we do use as Canadians and as Canada to highlight the issues that matter most to our citizenry.
Afzal Khan Sahab, there are 15 British Pakistani members of parliament, yet Britain hasn't condemned Indian atrocities in Kashmir. Is the British government blind, or the Kashmiris are not ready to accept the brutal reality?
No, I think you're right. The truth is that the British government, has been sitting on the fence. It seems that their policy is not to be drawn in, and they take comfort from Shimla Mehta and many international organizations. UN itself also shields behind this now, and that the two countries want to resolve. But again, the hard reality on the ground is the Kashmiri people who have been suffering. And the second, I think, important point is that Indian government's policy is where the problem is. When they're looking towards the international community, the other countries, their response is, this is a bilateral matter between us, we've agreed to sort this out. And then when they look towards Pakistan and the Kashmiri people, then this is not an issue. So they don't actually do anything about it. So they're not doing anything about it, yet telling others to keep out of it. And I think the British government actually has a triple responsibility, I would say. Number one, they have a moral, historical reason why they need to be involved, engaged, trying to get this sorted out. Secondly, they have a large number of Pakistani, Kashmiri, Indian citizens who have made Britain their home. So they live here, and this has a huge impact on all of them. And we're also part of the Commonwealth. Again, both India and Pakistan are important countries in this context. But let's not also forget that Britain is also a permanent member of the United Nations, and the United Nations resolutions are there. Very purpose of the UN is to make sure that they maintain peace in the world. So there's a clear danger there that the dispute which involves nuclear powers, not one, but two, but three. We've seen with what is happening with LoC in China. So you just can't sit back, and I think British government really needs to play a much more active part, trying to get all the parties together and to get a resolution.
Dr. Saab, India has repeatedly rejected Donald Trump's mediation offers. Should he feel humiliated?
I don't think President Trump needs to feel humiliated by India not picking up the offer. The concern is obviously between two countries who are wanting to be at war with each other on certain issues. President Trump gave his offer with all good intentions. Whether the countries accept it or not is their issue, but there's no reason for President Trump to feel humiliated about it.
Dr. Saab, let's compare the tenure of President Obama with that of President Trump. Don't you agree that President Trump has relentlessly pursued mediation on Kashmir?
Yes, I think you are right that President Trump definitely has started the process and offered the mediation, and India never agreed it. So this was some gesture which never went anywhere. But you have to understand that one person and one president cannot do anything. It has to be a big effort where there's a Congress is involved, a House of Congress representative, House of Representative, and the Senate is involved. There are articles have to be approved, resolutions have to be approved, and there have to be consensus between the Republican and Democratic Party. So it's not one person or two persons effort. It's a big effort which has to be done collectively, and then you can get something done and bring all the parties on the table, and they agree on something which can work on everybody.
Professor Naeem Zafar, who is to blame for the whole situation in Kashmir? Despite statements and efforts, we haven't seen any progress on the issue. Instead, new lines are being drawn unilaterally.
Who's to blame for the whole situation in Kashmir is a complicated question. You have to go back and see all the mistakes that were made starting back in 1948. But given where we are, this is obviously a blatant attempt by Modi government to win their support from their base. And Kashmiri people have greatly suffered, continue to suffer, living in minority rule that they are. It again goes back to, it tells us that Quaid-e-Azam did have the right vision. And all the people who fought for independence, otherwise we would have been living in apartheid. Seeing what Modi government is able to do and how much national fervor is in support of these restrictions in India makes me feel proud that we did gain our independence in 1947, and I'm hopeful that someday, through the internet, by spreading the truth, Kashmiris will also feel the same independence.
Professor Najm, do you agree?
So who's to blame for the crisis? I think history is to blame from the crisis. This is a 70-year-old dispute. This is a 70-year-old crisis. My own view has always been that if you really want to put blame, the blame goes back to 1947. It goes back to Lord Mountbatten, this extremely incompetent British Governor General who left then British India in tatters. And sometimes it seems sort of purposefully wanting to leave it in a way that it would be at unrest. And Kashmir in particular, I think, is a manifestation of that British incompetence. Now, of course, history is what history is, but we are not in 1947, we are in 2020. And in 2020, what is clear is that now the issue has fossilized on both the Pakistan side and the Indian side, and in fact it is alive mostly because of the Kashmiri people themselves. That for 7 decades the Kashmiri people have sort of stood firm in this view that they are not going to let it go, and that's what's keeping it alive. Now with Mr. Modi having sort of made these unilateral changes, and then you can also see that China has come into the game. What you have is a big royal mess. At this level, I'm not sure if the real important question is who is to blame. The important question is who can make things better. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, I do not think that this time is ripe for a solution. Mr. Modi is entrenched. In Pakistan's side, the government has its own challenges, and certainly Pakistan and India are not on terms that seem like searching for a solution. And on the international stage, you have United Nations that seems to be totally sort of without any clause, without any ability to do anything. And you have in the U.S. as well as in the other parties, in the other major powers, governments that seem not really interested in actually solving the crisis.
Dr. Saab, almost 100 Kashmiris have died and more than 7,000 have fallen sick. What the world community should do to ensure Kashmiris get proper medical facilities that they badly need?
जी, आपने जो स्टैटिस्टिक्स दी है, सच है कि कोरोना वायरस जो है वो दुनिया भर में बढ़ रहा है. इसी तरीके से ये कश्मीर में भी फैल रहा है, और मुझको तो डर है कि ये और ज़्यादा फैलेगा, स्पेशली वहाँ पे जो रिस्ट्रिक्शन है लोगों की मूवमेंट में, और जो मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज़ की कमी है. लोग डरते भी हैं मेडिकल फैसिलिटी सीख करते हुए, इसलिए कि जो आर्मी है वहाँ पे इंडियन, उसकी दहशत बहुत ज़्यादा है, और राइटली सो कि उनके सारे ह्यूमन राइट्स को उनसे छीना हुआ है. मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज़ की तो वैसे ही थर्ड वर्ल्ड में कमी है, लेकिन कश्मीर जैसी रिमोट जगह पे तो और ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. जिस तरीके से ये वायरस फैल रहा है, जैसे मैं पहले कहा कि मुझे लगता है कि हालात और बुरे होंगे. हम लोग जो हैं मदद दूसरे मुल्कों में बैठ के इमोशनल कर सकते हैं. वी कैन हेल्प फाइनेंशियली थ्रू डिफरेंट एजेंसीज, लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा मदद जो हम कर सकते हैं, अगर हम हर अपने मुल्क से अपने जो हुक्मरान हैं, जो लेजिस्लेशन वाले हैं, जो कांग्रेसमैन हैं, जो पार्लियामेंटेरियंस हैं, उनको हम प्रेस करें, उनको हम मुत्तला करें कि क्या क्या ह्यूमन राइट्स की खिलाफ वर्जियाँ हो रही हैं. एंड जिस तरीके से ये ब्लैक लाइफ मूवमेंट हुई है, इसमें ही हम लोग किसी तरीके से बताएं कि भाई यहाँ पे जो एट्रॉसिटीज़ हुई हैं और हो रही हैं कालों के साथ, इसी तरीके से कश्मीर में कश्मीरियों के साथ हो रही है. उनके सारे जो हकूक़ हैं उनको छीन लिया गया है, और अब तो उनकी जो एक फ्रीडम थी कि वो कश्मीरी हैं, वो भी उनसे छीनी जा रही है. तो आई थिंक अगर लोग उसमें मोबिलाइज हो जाएं तो उम्मीद है कि जो वेस्टर्न गवर्नमेंट्स हैं जिनकी बात वो लोग सुनते हैं इंडियंस, वो गवर्नमेंट्स इंडियंस को प्रेशराइज करें कि कश्मीरियों को उनके हकूक़ वापस दिए जाएं और कश्मीरियों को जो उनकी सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन के राइट्स हैं वो दिए जाएं.
Ikra Khalid Saiba, in 13th August statement, you said that it's time for all parties and the international community to sit together and find a peaceful solution. What do you see is the clear path to peace?
Thank you for that question. I think when we talk about raising awareness, when we talk about working for people that are suffering human rights violations, we have to have concrete solutions proposed as part of that conversation. And in my statement, I did highlight the need for the international community, for all parties involved, to really put the focus on the people of Kashmir. I think that they should have the autonomy to decide their own fate, to decide their own future. And I think that when we put the focus on human rights of individuals, when we respect the human rights of individuals, and really work towards improving that life, then we will come up with concrete solutions. A lot of the work that I do as a member of parliament has been about social justice and will continue to be to raise awareness and to propose those concrete solutions. And in this instance, and in every instance where human rights violations occur, I think that including the people that are impacted in that conversation is the place to start. It's ground zero. So in order for this issue to be resolved, in order for the people of Kashmir to move forward, they need to be the ones to decide their own fate.
Afzal Khan sir, what practical steps can be taken to reduce tension escalating between India and Pakistan? Is there any out-of-the-box solution in your mind that can at least bridge the gulf and build the trust?
Look, it's this dispute which is long overdue, which needs resolution. And I find it painful in a sense that so much suffering is happening from all sides. It's not just the Kashmiris, of course, who are getting the brunt of this suffering. But I think the Indian people are also suffering, and I think Pakistani people are also suffering. So the answer actually is very simple. It doesn't need to be out of the box as such, but really people need to get to the basics. And that is, look, we've all agreed, everyone's agreed that the people of Kashmir need to take a decision. Now, let's give them that decision. By doing that, you will have peace, you'll have stability, you'll have prosperity. Then the whole South Asia can actually move forward and progress. The contrast is in front of us. With such a 900,000 British Army personnel in occupied Kashmir, one of the highest concentration of military anywhere in the world. We see the risk of nuclear war all around. So it's just nobody's interest, I think. So instead of really trying to delay this, each side need to show urgency, get around the table, implement what everybody's agreed.
Dr. Saab, President Trump says that he deserves Nobel Peace Prize more than anybody. Don't you think he tried best to solve issues like Kashmir but failed?
On that issue, I do agree that I think the committee that decides who gets the Nobel Peace Prize, it really depends on them. It is not a question of President Trump or anybody else, any other politician thinking that they have done a lot for peace process. I think the committee that is there to decide who gets the Nobel Peace Prize should be left alone to decide whether they take him or somebody else for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Dr. Saab, let's assume Joe Biden wins the White House. At the most, he can only offer mediation. So what difference will it make for the Kashmir cause?
I think this time the difference what I see, I may be wrong on this, that probably for the first time so many Muslims and so many Pakistani Americans, APPAC is one of the leading organizations, we are working we are all on the table in the policy and the issues we are bringing up. If there is whenever there is a campaign going on, there is a policy paper. So we were able to collectively able to put this in the policy paper, that the Kashmir issue and minorities issues which are happening with the Muslims in India. These are major concerns, and also hate crimes against Muslims and other minorities here in against Muslims in America. So we were able to put these things in the Biden policy paper. Once Biden is elected, hopefully that looks like it, then these policy things are going to go in the platform, in the president's platform. That's where we want to be. And the effect of the community and the political will what we are trying to create, which is a national will, that Muslims and Pakistani Americans are part of the discussion, and we have a constant discussion and pressure and talking points on daily basis, where there is a policy and a platform concern of the president. So these issues which matter to us, they are always on the top, and they are not only at the president level, but also at the House of Representative level and at the Senate level. So it's a lot of work, and we are hoping to accomplish it with not only one person, but with the whole community getting involved.
Professor Naeem Zafar, India is a big market and a better strategic partner. Even if Joe Biden is elected as president, do you think he will go beyond these words?
So it's hard to say how Joe Biden will change the landscape and what's happening in India, but I do know it will be better than what's happening today. What America stood for, what made America great, was principles of independence and democracy and people's right. They haven't done a great job of upholding it all over the world, I grant you that, but the principles are still alive. And current administration under Trump have completely bypassed them. And I think that emboldened Modi's government to do what they did. I'm quite confident that if Joe Biden were president, India will be walking a much more cautious line. So I'm still very hopeful that if Joe Biden becomes the president, they will be going back to the normalcy which we have experienced for the last 72 years. So it will be good for Pakistan and for Kashmiri people to have a U.S. which believes in its original values and can uphold them and discourage what's going on in Kashmir today, which is intolerable. So Kashmiri people and Pakistani cause will have a louder voice. Will it change U.S. action dramatically? Maybe not. But the balance of rationality will return to normal, and that's good for Kashmir.
Professor Najam, do you agree?
Whether Mr. Biden is elected or not, I do not think it will make a difference on the issue of Kashmir or the issue of India or Pakistan in general. I think India, Kashmir are now bipartisan issues. Just like China is bipartisan. In the US, maybe they are the only international issues on which there seems to be a bipartisan consensus. And the consensus, unfortunately, is A, that the US is not really interested in resolving the Kashmir crisis. The US would rather have the issue go away. There is clearly no interest either on the side of the Democrats or on the side of the Republicans to do anything about it, to put their own political capital in doing anything about Kashmir. Now, that's not about being Republican or Democrats. In some ways, the US position is we'd rather not get into this mess. Their position is this is your mess, you guys deal with it. And that works very well for India. Now, on the Indian side, clearly India is a big market, but that's not the only reason why there is such a strong consensus within the US on sort of leaning towards India. One of the reasons is the market, but that's not the primary reason. I think one of the other reasons, as big, maybe more, is China. And it is a simple politics of a enemy's enemy being a friend. The US does not trust Pakistan very much anymore. The US does see India as a counterweight to China, a counterweight that they want. And finally, I think there is simply the question of the US diaspora, the Indian diaspora in the US. And that dynamic, that number is very simple. It is such a large diaspora that its political clout for the US is going to far outweigh any international relations arguments on Kashmir one way or the other. So no, I do not see a change happening whether Mr. Biden gets elected or whether Mr. Trump stays president. The rhetoric may change, but basic policy, no.
Thanks to all of our distinguished guests who joined us from different countries. In the next program, we'll focus on another burning issue of your interest. Thanks for joining us. Stay blessed.